think you mentioned something really interesting there about speed and the speed of decision making and how that's changing as well. It'd be good to hear a bit more about, sort of what tools and what strategies you're using to sort of increase that speed of decision making and sort of engage with customers in a more meaningful way. You mentioned personalization, and a lot of that's only possible with, using high volumes of data in a way that technology has to be part of that conversation.
Yeah, I think at the heart of this is about driving agility and speed is around changing the way that we work to focus on very specific outcomes. And we are a very established organization with a lot of history and a lot of roots ingrained in core retail operations. And really for us, it's about really thinking differently. How do we start moving away from activities? How do we start focusing teams more on the set of outcomes? And actually, how do we bring people with different skill sets together to solve a problem? And we've done this in one of the different ways. We use a tool called mission teams, where we really create a very bold ambition that we know that's really worthwhile for us to go after. Bring the set of people across the organization we think can have the skill sets to come and solve for it, and have them orient around a very specific outcome that they're clearly measured against. What that does is creates a very high level of accountability, but also autonomy within that team. And with that, is we've seen really strong results of teams actually being able to unshackle all the challenges within the organization and actually just being able to move forward and achieving those results. And as we do more of that, we're seeing those benefits spread across the organization and teams thinking differently around how they work together and actually how they work towards outcomes together and have collective success.
Over the past year or so, we've seen a step change in the way that retailers are adopting automation. So this is going to be the first Christmas where the majority of our retailers are using Google's most advanced machine learning in their search. So it's going to be quite exciting to see how that brings kind of new efficiencies in the competitive dynamic. But I mean, that's like a fundamental requirement now, is to have that machine learning through, so that you can do that personalization at scale, like Jeremy talked about, or you can be there for the customer because the journeys are so complex now.
That's a great point. And if you think about, and Google deals with scale at an incredible level, but as we think about in our world around personalization, to personalize, in a year of 500 million engagements, you can't do that manually. You can't do that through 3-week campaign building processes. What you need to do is actually rethink your processes and your capabilities and think about what you need to automate and how do you actually deliver the right experience at that right moment for our customers. And the only way to tell whether you're doing it right is actually just start measuring everything. Did it respond? Did customers like it? Did they engage with it? And that allows you to think about the feedback of making more successful experience for our customers.
What are some of your predictions for peak? And Sophie, we can start with you.
Well, there's a few things that we're seeing at the moment. When you look at online search demand, so people looking for Christmas terms, Christmas gift ideas, it's absolutely keeping pace right now with where it was last year. Now, August is actually when a lot of that research and demand takes off. Like 1 in 20 people is already shopping for Christmas. So last year was a bumper online Christmas. We're actually seeing demand begin to take off in a similar way. And I think what we're seeing come through in consumer surveys are indicators which suggest it's going to be a very big online Christmas. You've got 80% of people are still worried about a second wave. Only a quarter of people are feeling that they're getting back to normal. And so I think, and we know that people have been browsing a lot more already and they've got used to that. Like Jeremy was saying, that's now become part of people's lives. So I think that all suggests a lot of online activity this year.
I think similar. I think Sophie hit the right points. And what I would say is maybe just caution that there's probably a lot of uncertainty going into this Christmas, but all indication that we're seeing is actually probably very similar. And we're actually seeing probably a little bit earlier than customers would typically shop Christmas with M&S, but we're starting to see more activation in search terms and exploration within our digital experiences as well. And I think just even at an individual level, I think people are excited about the opportunity to actually celebrate Christmas together again. I think that is such an important part And for me, I haven't been home in close to 2 years now.
Wow.
And it's just that connection, and you want to really do something big there. And so as a business, we're really thinking about what are the categories that really need to play up. How do we really win in gifting, and is a very big category for us, and the role that has to play. And actually, how do we think about personalization in probably even a bigger way, and not just in the experience, but also in product. I think this idea of this journey, digital journey, and how people will shop, I think they will be much more explorative in earlier phases online as well. And the question is, how do you bring that same level of inspiration digitally for our customers? How do you help them navigate and make choices online? And so a lot of the areas that we're trying to focus on for this year.
This is a really interesting thing that was accelerated through COVID, but which was very much the trend before, is what we call it the growth in generic search terms. But what that basically means is, instead of looking at a particular retailer as your first go-to place to buy a gift, you actually look for best gift. So you'd be looking for best slippers, and that, of course, then lays the field wide open for how do you as a retailer reach that consumer and inspire them with your amazing range and bring them to your purchase channels, whether that's online or in shop. And that's what we're seeing again this year. We just a continual trend to see that growth in people looking for the best, wanting to do the research, and now having the means and time to do it.
Sounds good. And I think from our research, we're expecting a pretty good Christmas. So a fantastic number I saw the other day was we've saved 190 billion cumulatively as a country. And in a normal year, we save 5 billion. So there's a lot of pent up demand still in the system. And I think you're right, Jeremy. Last Christmas was very challenging. People couldn't see their families. You couldn't have big celebrations. So there is an expectation that people will be in both food and non-food spending a bit more than perhaps they did to make up for lost time. But there's some interesting predictions there.
Yeah, there's a lot of pent-up demand for travel as well, so that will have a big impact. But we've seen that play out in some of the shopping trends.
Absolutely, and there is some expectation on a slightly more dour note with the current driver supply shortages that some of that demand might shift earlier in the season, because if people do become worried that they won't be able to secure the gifts they want or anything else. So Jeremy, we've talked a lot about M&S's sort of digital journey over the course of the pandemic and beyond. How have you been working with Google in terms of your digital strategy, and how does that fit into your sort of longer term plans post-peak?
We work very closely with Google, one of our strategic partners, and Sophie and her team are incredible. We work with them on so many different areas. What I would say, one of the more obvious areas we think about is what's the best way to effectively reach our customers in an effective way, effectively across our own channels, but also through the different channels that Google has as well. And thinking about doing it in a way that leverages our data to drive the efficiency and targeting that we need to do. And we spoke a little bit, which is the complexity of this shopping journey. And customers are thinking and starting at different points of that journey digitally now. And so we need to be where they are. We need to be, in the right video content. When they're on YouTube, we have to think about how we engage with different social aspects, and also just when they are in the active state of search as well. The Google partnership allows us to do that at a very large scale as well, because they are interacting with so many different parts of our business.
It has been really inspiring over the past 18 months to see that M&S, even in the midst of, changing the way that tens of thousands of people work and serve customers on the front line, and all of the safety implications of that, reshaping the warehouses, building capacity, that the team was still able to come together and define some big technical projects around improving the web experience or using data across different parts of the business and in media, and very quickly mobilize around those projects at all levels across multiple teams in the business, cross-functionally, and Google was able to be a part of that and support with expertise, as well as being on that cultural journey alongside those teams.
A lot of things we do, it's about finding the right partners to go along with us on this journey. And we have some really big ambitions, and we think it takes a lot to get there, and really appreciate all the help that we have with our partners.
Fantastic. Sophie, Jeremy, thank you so much for the conversation today. I think we've covered some really important topics. So thank you very much for your time. It's been fantastic speaking to you. And thank you to everyone watching. See you next time.